Thexari closed the final data file and sat in silence. The archive room felt colder than usual, or perhaps that was just him feeling the weight of 50 years of mistakes. Outside the window, Council Station Prime orbited peacefully around its star, looking exactly as it had when humanity had been members, but everything else had changed. He pulled up the latest status report from Council Intelligence. The Vryn had indeed withdrawn to their original borders, just as Ambassador Chen had promised. Not a single Vryn ship had crossed into Council space in the 15 years since the expedition to human territory. The war that had threatened to destroy the Council had ended with a whimper, solved by a species the Council had considered unremarkable. Thexari opened another file, this one containing trade statistics. In the decades since humanity's departure, the Council had established limited commercial relationships with them. Human goods were highly prized across Council space. Medical technologies that extended lifespans, power generators that operated at impossible efficiency, consumer devices that seemed like magic to most Council citizens. But the trade was entirely on human terms. They sold what they wanted to sell, when they wanted to sell it, at prices they set. The Council had no leverage to negotiate. A few species had tried imposing tariffs or trade restrictions, hoping to force better terms. Humanity had simply stopped trading with those species. Within months, political pressure from citizens who wanted access to human goods had forced the governments to capitulate. The Council wasn't irrelevant, not exactly, but they existed in humanity's shadow now. Everyone knew it, even if the Council leadership rarely acknowledged it publicly. Thexari pulled up another memory from 5 years ago. The Calyx plague had swept through several Council worlds, killing millions. The disease was unlike anything Council medical science had encountered. Hospitals overflowed. Entire cities went into quarantine. The death toll climbed daily. The Council had debated for weeks about whether to request human assistance. Some representatives argued it would be too humiliating. Others insisted that pride was less important than lives. Eventually, desperation won out. The Council had sent an official request to human diplomatic channels. They received a response within hours. Human medical teams arrived within days. They brought equipment, medicine, and knowledge that the Council's own doctors couldn't match. Within 2 months, the plague was contained. Within 6 months, it was eradicated completely. The humans had saved millions of lives. They hadn't asked for payment. They hadn't made political demands. They had simply helped because people were dying, just as Ambassador Chen had promised they would during humanitarian crises. But they had done it remotely. The medical teams were professionals who completed their mission efficiently and then left. No diplomatic ceremonies, no grand gestures, no attempt to leverage the Council's gratitude into political influence. They helped because it aligned with their values, not because they wanted anything from the Council. That was perhaps the hardest part to accept. Humanity didn't need the Council for anything. Not resources, not technology, not trade, not military support. Nothing. They existed completely independently, and every interaction with Council species was purely optional from their perspective. Thexari opened a personal message file. Over the years, he had maintained occasional correspondence with Ambassador Chen. Their conversations were cordial but distant. She was always polite, always professional, but there was a wall between them that 50 years hadn't eroded. In her last message, sent 3 months ago, she had mentioned that humanity was preparing to send expeditions beyond the galactic rim into completely unexplored space. They had detected signals from ancient civilizations that predated the Council by millions of years. They were pursuing mysteries that made Council politics seem small and insignificant. Humanity had moved on, completely, utterly. They weren't looking back. Thexari stood and walked to the window. Below, he could see Council stations' docking bays. Ships from dozens of species came and went constantly. Trade continued, diplomacy continued, life continued. The Council still existed, still functioned, still mattered to its member species. But it existed in a galaxy where it was no longer the most advanced civilization, where it was no longer the strongest power, where it was no longer the center of everything. A notification appeared on his datapad. The council leadership wanted his final report on the human situation. 50 years of research, compiled into a comprehensive analysis. They wanted to know if there was any way to change the relationship, any way to regain the partnership they had lost. Texari sat back down and began typing his conclusions. He had spent half a century studying humanity's exodus and its aftermath. He understood now what had happened, even if understanding came too late to matter. He wrote, "The Council's relationship with humanity cannot be fundamentally changed because it was never truly broken from humanity's perspective. They did not leave in anger or hatred. They left in disappointment. They offered us their best for 2 centuries, and we treated it as adequate but unremarkable. They proposed innovations, and we called them impractical. They shared their research, and we filed it away as academic curiosities. They requested opportunities to grow, and we denied them for bureaucratic convenience. When humanity departed, they did so with dignity and silence. They did not denounce us. They did not make demands. They simply recognized that the Council would never truly value them, and they chose to build something new where they could reach their full potential. In the 35 years since their departure, humanity has accomplished what the Council has failed to achieve in 1,000 years. They have built a civilization that spans hundreds of systems. They have developed technologies that seem like magic to us. They have created a society that is self-sufficient, prosperous, and peaceful. They have succeeded without us. That is the fundamental reality we must accept." Texari paused in his typing, organizing his thoughts for the difficult conclusion. Some council members still hope that humanity will eventually rejoin us, or that we can somehow regain equal partnership with them. This hope is based on a misunderstanding of the situation. Humanity does not need to rejoin the Council. They have built something better. They exist as the dominant power in this region of space, and they allow the Council to exist independently because it serves their interests in maintaining galactic stability. The Council faces a choice. We can acknowledge this reality and work to build a respectful relationship with humanity on their terms, or we can continue to pretend that we are still the preeminent galactic civilization and remain largely isolated from humanity's continued advancement. What we cannot do is return to the past. We cannot undo our dismissal of human potential. We cannot reclaim the partnership we failed to properly value. We cannot force humanity to need us when they have proven they don't. My recommendation is that the Council formally acknowledge humanity as an equal or superior civilization and restructure all diplomatic protocols accordingly. We should actively seek opportunities to learn from them, as they once tried to contribute to us. We should treat their proposals with the seriousness we failed to show in the past, and most importantly, we should accept that the galaxy has changed. The Council is no longer the center of civilization. We are one of several significant powers, and humanity is now the strongest among them. Texari stopped typing and read over what he had written. It was harsh but honest. The Council wouldn't want to hear it. Some representatives would call him a defeatist or claim he had been compromised by his contact with humans. But it was the truth. He added one final section. Personal reflection from the researcher. I was present in the Council Chamber 50 years ago when Ambassador Chen delivered humanity's request to depart. I remember thinking they were giving up, that they had finally realized they couldn't compete with superior species. I was wrong. They weren't giving up. They were graduating. We believed we were the center of galactic civilization. We thought humanity needed us. The truth is simpler and more humbling. They never did. They played by our rules out of politeness, not necessity. They contributed to our society despite our dismissal because it aligned with their values, not because they expected reward. When we granted them permission to leave, we lost the only species that could have elevated us all. We didn't lose them because they were weak. We lost them because we were arrogant. We saw their potential and dismissed it. We heard their ideas and called them impractical. We observed their capabilities and rated them as merely adequate. We were so convinced of our own superiority that we failed to recognize excellence when it stood before us. And now we live forever in the silence they granted us. Not as enemies, for they bear us no hatred, Not as friends, for we destroyed that possibility through our own actions. We exist as neighbors to a species that has transcended the need for our approval, our resources, or our partnership. The greatest tragedy is not that humanity left. It is that we let them go without understanding what we were losing, and by the time we realized our mistake, it was far too late to matter. Thexari saved the document and prepared to transmit it to the council leadership. As he did, a news alert appeared on his screen. The word hung in the air of the conference room like a physical weight. Thexari watched Captain Vornix's face cycle through several emotions before settling on careful composure. "Ambassador Chen," the captain said slowly, "I don't think you understand the severity of the situation. The Vrin Concordat has already destroyed 3 council worlds. Millions are dead. Our defensive capabilities are proving inadequate against their technology. We need help." Chen nodded sympathetically. "I understand completely. In fact, we've been monitoring the Vrin attacks since they began. We know about Pella Prime, Corax 7, and Thelian Minor. We know the casualty counts. We know the Council fleet has been unable to mount an effective defense." Thexari leaned forward. "You've been watching? Why haven't you intervened?" "Because it's not our fight," Chen replied simply. "The Council made it very clear 35 years ago that we were no longer members. We respected that decision. What happens in Council space is Council business." One of the other officers, a Vrixian named Tellan, spoke up angrily. "People are dying. Doesn't that matter to you?" For the first time, Chen's expression hardened. "Of course it matters. Every death matters. But I need you to understand something." She pulled up a holographic display showing a data file. "Let me show you what mattered to us." The display changed, showing a document. "This is a proposal we submitted 48 years ago. Human scientists had developed a new shield technology that could absorb energy attacks more efficiently. We offered to share it with the Council in exchange for permission to expand our colony on New Harmony by 30%. Do you know what the Council's response was?" She didn't wait for an answer. They said the shield technology was interesting but unproven, and denied the expansion request because it would disrupt the local ecosystem. Meanwhile, they approved a Vrixian mining operation on the same planet that displaced thousands of native species. Another document appeared. "This is a human proposal for improving quantum drive efficiency. We had reduced travel time between core worlds by 40%. We offered to upgrade the entire Council Jumpgate network for free. The Council Science Directorate rejected it because implementing the changes would require too much coordination across multiple species and therefore be politically complicated." More documents cycled through. "Here's a request to allow human medical teams to establish clinics on underdeveloped worlds. Denied because it might create dependency on human aid. Here's a proposal for a new communication protocol that would improve council-wide data transmission. Denied because the existing system is adequate. Here's a design for more efficient recycling systems for space stations. Denied because aesthetic considerations must be balanced with functionality." The documents kept coming. Dozens of them, hundreds, each one showing a human proposal that had been rejected, delayed, or ignored. "For 200 years, Chen said quietly, humanity tried to contribute to the Council. We offered our innovations. We shared our research. We proposed improvements. And at every turn we were told no. Not because our ideas were bad, but because accepting them would require the Council to change, to adapt, to acknowledge that maybe humans had something valuable to offer." She closed the display. "So when you ask why we don't intervene to save the Council, I ask you, why should we? Why should we risk human lives to protect a government that spent 2 centuries making it clear we weren't valued?" Thexari felt shame burning in his chest. He had reviewed many of those proposals during his research. At the time, he had thought the Council's decisions were reasonable. Now seeing them all together, he realized how systematic the dismissal had been. "The Vrin are using weapons based on our published research," Chen continued. "We know. Dr. Rishala's analysis was correct. Those papers we published were simplified versions of technologies we had already developed. We shared them because we hoped the Council would see their potential and work with us to develop them further. Instead," she said, her voice carrying a hint of bitterness, "the Council called them impractical and filed them away. The Vrin were apparently the only ones who took our research seriously. They built weapons from theories we had already moved beyond decades ago. Captain Vornix's shoulders slumped. So you're going to let the council fall? Let millions more die? No, Chen said firmly. We're not monsters. We're not going to allow genocide. But we're also not going to save the council from itself. She stood and walked to the viewport. The Vryn attacks will stop soon, not because the council will suddenly develop better defenses, but because we've already dealt with the problem. Thexari stood quickly. What do you mean? Chen gestured to the space beyond the window. 3 days ago, a human diplomatic team met with the Vryn High Command. We explained to them that while we have no interest in council politics, we also won't tolerate aggressive expansion that threatens galactic stability. We demonstrated some of our defensive capabilities. The Vryn were very impressed. You made contact with our enemy, Talon said accusingly. They're not our enemy, Chen corrected. They're your enemy. To us, they're just another species making aggressive moves that could eventually threaten our borders. We made it clear that further attacks on council worlds would force us to intervene, and showed them exactly what that intervention would look like. She pulled up a new display showing a recorded transmission. The image showed Vryn warships, the same advanced vessels that had destroyed 3 council worlds. They were completely disabled, drifting in space with their systems offline. This was their entire Third Fleet, Chen explained. 27 capital ships, 40 destroyers, and over 100 support vessels. We shut down all of them simultaneously from a distance of 3 light-years using quantum resonance technology. We didn't destroy them. We didn't harm their crews. We simply demonstrated that we could neutralize their entire military from beyond their sensor range whenever we choose. The recording showed the Vryn ships powering back up after several minutes. The transmission ended. The Vryn leadership understood the message, Chen said. They've agreed to cease all hostile actions against council worlds and return to their original borders. In exchange, we've agreed not to interfere with their internal politics. The war is over. The room fell silent. Humanity had ended a conflict that threatened the entire council with a single demonstration of power. They hadn't asked for council permission. They hadn't negotiated through proper diplomatic channels. They had simply solved the problem on their own terms. You could have done that months ago, Thexari said softly, before 3 worlds fell, before millions died. Chen turned to look at him. Yes, we could have. But the council needed to understand what it lost when we left. You needed to see what happens when you ignore valuable allies. You needed to feel the consequences of your arrogance. Her words were harsh, but her tone wasn't cruel. She sounded like a teacher delivering a difficult lesson. I'm not happy about the deaths, Chen continued. Every loss of life weighs on me. But humanity learned long ago that some lessons can only be taught through consequences. The council believed we were mediocre, unremarkable, easily replaced. Now you know the truth. Captain Vornix spoke carefully. Ambassador, I understand your anger. The council made mistakes in how it treated humanity, but surely there's a way forward. Some kind of partnership or alliance? Perhaps eventually, Chen said. But not now. Not on the council's terms. She returned to her seat. Let me be very clear about humanity's position. We will not rejoin the council. We will not share our advanced technology. We will not fight your wars or solve your political problems. However, she continued, we're not completely closed to interaction. We're willing to establish limited diplomatic relations. We're open to trade agreements on human terms. We're willing to provide humanitarian aid in cases of natural disasters or similar emergencies. And as we demonstrated with the Vryn, we will intervene to prevent genocide or species-wide extinction events. Thexari felt a small spark of hope. That's something. That's more than nothing. Chen smiled slightly. It is, but you need to understand what this relationship will look like. You'll be approaching us as the lesser power. You'll be trading with us on terms we set. You'll be accepting our help when we choose to give it, not demanding it as a right. The dynamic has completely reversed. She pulled up another display, this one showing star charts. Humanity controls or has significant presence in 247 star systems. We have a population of over 40 billion across multiple worlds. Our technology is generations ahead of the council's. Our economy is larger than the entire council combined. Our military could conquer every council world in a matter of weeks if we chose to. The officers around the table shifted uncomfortably. Shen let them absorb that information before continuing. We don't want to conquer you. We're not interested in empire. But you need to understand the reality of the situation. The Council is no longer the dominant power in this region of space. You exist now because we choose to let you exist as an independent entity. Your borders are safe because we've decided that galactic stability serves our interests. Talon stood angrily. This is outrageous. You're threatening the Council. No, Chen said calmly. I'm explaining reality to you. The CSS Explorer dropped out of quantum space at the edge of known territory. Beyond the viewport, space looked different somehow. Darker. Empty in a way that made Thexari uncomfortable. Final position check, Captain Vornix ordered from the command chair. The Krellian's forearms moved across multiple consoles simultaneously. We are at the coordinates from the last known human way station, the navigation officer reported. Sector designated as Outer Rim 447. No Council presence ever recorded here. Thexari stood near the captain's chair, reviewing data on his personal display. As the Council's chief researcher on the human exodus, he had been the obvious choice to lead this expedition. For 5 months they had followed a trail of abandoned way station markers that humanity had left behind during their departure 35 years ago. Each marker had pointed them further toward the Galactic Rim, into regions of space that no Council ship had ever explored. The markers had been simple beacons, designed to guide human ships during the exodus. They contained no other information, just coordinates to the next marker in the chain. Now they had reached the last one. Sensors, full sweep, Captain Vornix commanded. Look for any signs of human presence. The sensor officer, a Talon named Crix, worked his station carefully. Minutes passed in silence. Then Crix's feathers ruffled in confusion. Sir, I'm detecting something strange. There's a massive region of space ahead where our sensors simply stop working. Elaborate, the captain said. It's like there's a wall, sir. Approximately 50 light-years ahead, all sensor returns become garbled. I'm reading quantum interference patterns consistent with some kind of damping field. Whatever is generating it is enormous. Thexari felt his pulse quicken. Can we get closer? Captain Vornix considered for a moment, then nodded. Helm, take us forward. Slow and steady. Sensors, keep monitoring that field. If anything changes, I want to know immediately. The Explorer moved forward through empty space. The stars ahead looked normal, but Thexari couldn't shake the feeling that they were approaching something significant. After 35 years, were they finally about to find humanity? Field boundary in 10,000 kilometers, Crix reported. 9,000. 8,000. The ship slowed as they approached. On the main view screen, space looked completely normal. But according to sensors, they were about to cross into a region where the laws of physics seemed to change. 5,000 kilometers. 4,000. 3,000. All stations, alert status, Captain Vornix ordered. Prepare for anything. 2,000. 1,000. Crossing the boundary now. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every console on the bridge went haywire. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. The main view screen filled with static. Report. The captain shouted over the noise. All sensors are overloading. Crix yelled. I'm reading quantum interference across every spectrum. It's like the entire region is flooded with active scanning fields. Thousands of them, overlapping and interacting. Communications? Vornix asked. Dead, sir. All frequencies are jammed. Navigation? Inertial systems still functional, but stellar navigation is impossible. We're blind. Thexari gripped the railing near his station. They had penetrated humanity's border, and immediately lost all ability to see or communicate. This was either very bad or exactly what they should have expected from a species that wanted privacy. Captain, Crix said suddenly, his voice tight. I'm detecting multiple contacts. Large contacts. They're all around us, on screen. Best guess projection. The view screen flickered and then displayed a tactical projection based on proximity sensors. Thexari's breath caught in his throat. Ships surrounded them. Dozens of ships. Each one was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Explorer. They had appeared silently without any quantum drive signatures or energy spikes. One moment space had been empty. The next moment they were surrounded. No weapon signatures, Crix reported. But sir, these ships don't match any configuration in our databases. The design is completely unknown. Unknown, Thexari thought, but he could guess. They're human ships. Before anyone could respond, the communications console beeped. The officer there looked up in surprise. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only. It's coming through on an old Council emergency frequency. Put it through, Captain Vornix ordered. A voice filled the bridge. Human. Male. Speaking in perfect Council standard. Council Vessel Explorer, you have entered restricted space. Please state your purpose for this intrusion. The voice was polite but firm, not threatening but not friendly either. Captain Vornix straightened in his chair. This is Captain Vornix of the Council Exploration Service. We are on a diplomatic mission to contact the United Humanity Collective. We request permission to speak with your leadership. Silence. It stretched for nearly a minute. Then the voice returned. Please maintain your current position. A diplomatic vessel will arrive shortly to escort you. Do not attempt to activate your quantum drive. Do not attempt to deploy any probes or drones. Simply wait. The transmission ended. Well, Captain Vornix said into the quiet bridge. I suppose they were expecting us eventually. Texari moved to the viewport and stared out at the darkness. Somewhere out there, hidden behind sensor dead zones and quantum interference, humanity had built something big enough to require this level of security, something worth hiding from the entire galaxy. 20 minutes later, Crix spoke up again. Sir, new contact approaching. Single vessel. It's huge. The view screen adjusted, focusing on the approaching ship. Even through the sensor interference, its size was obvious. The vessel was at least 10 times larger than the Explorer. Its design was sleek and elegant, with flowing curves that seemed almost organic. Soft blue lights ran along its hull in intricate patterns. I'm reading power signatures unlike anything in our databases, Crix said quietly. Whatever drives that ship uses, they're operating at efficiency levels that shouldn't be possible. The massive vessel came alongside the Explorer, dwarfing it completely. A new transmission arrived. Explorer, please follow us. We will guide you to a meeting location. Understood, Captain Vornix replied. We are ready to follow. The human ship accelerated smoothly and the Explorer followed. As they traveled deeper into human space, the sensor interference gradually cleared. Crix worked his console frantically, trying to gather data. Sir, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. I'm detecting artificial structures ahead. Lots of them. Orbital stations, satellite networks, and, Captain, I'm reading planetary signatures. Multiple planets. At least 20 within scanner range, and we're still too far out to see clearly. Texari pulled up Crix's sensor data on his display. His hands began shaking as he processed what he was seeing. Energy signatures that indicated massive industrial activity. Communication networks carrying enormous amounts of data. Power generation on a scale that seemed impossible. Captain, Crix continued, his voice rising, I'm detecting a stellar engineering project. There's a star ahead with a partial Dyson swarm around it. Captain, they're harvesting stellar energy on a system-wide scale. A Dyson swarm, the theoretical megastructure that Council scientists said, was centuries away from being practical. Humanity had built one. How many had they built? The human escort ship led them toward a large orbital station. As they approached, Texari could see dozens of other ships docked there. Some were clearly civilian vessels. Others looked military. All of them were enormous and built with technology that made Council ships look primitive. We're being guided to Docking Bay 7, the helm officer reported. The Explorer slowly entered the bay, which was large enough to hold 10 ships their size. As the docking clamps engaged, Texari noticed something through the viewport. Humans walking through the station corridors visible through transparent sections. They looked normal. They weren't wearing environment suits or showing any signs of difficulty. The station had perfect life support. Artificial gravity. Probably sophisticated recycling systems. All the things that Council stations struggled to maintain efficiently, humanity had perfected. Captain Vornix, the human voice returned on communications. Welcome to Haven Station. Please bring your senior staff to Docking Bay 7, Level 3. Ambassador Chen is waiting to meet with you. Texari's head snapped up. Chen? Ambassador Chen from the Exodus? Affirmative, the voice replied, somehow hearing his question. Ambassador Sarah Chen has been assigned as your primary contact for this meeting. 35 years. Ambassador Chen had been middle-aged during the Exodus. She would be elderly now, probably retired, but the humans had sent her specifically to meet with them. That wasn't a coincidence. Texari joined Captain Vornix and 3 other senior officers as they left the ship. The docking bay was clean and well lit, with the kind of efficient design that spoke of advanced engineering. A group of humans waited for them near the exit. In the center stood Ambassador Chen. Texari stopped walking and stared. She looked exactly as she had in the archival recordings. Same dark hair, same calm expression, same age. She didn't look a day older than she had 35 years ago. Chen smiled slightly, noticing his reaction. Yes, she said in perfect council standard. We've made some advances in life extension. Among other things, she gestured to the exit. Please come with me. Commander Drixon stood on the bridge of the CSS Determination, staring at the ruined planet below. Smoke rose from a dozen cities. Orbital debris from destroyed defense stations drifted past his viewport. The entire defensive fleet was gone, wiped out in less than 4 hours. This was Pella Prime, the third council world to fall to the Vryn Concordat in 6 months. Drixon had arrived too late with reinforcements. Again. Status report, he ordered, his voice tight with frustration. His tactical officer, a young Vrixian named Sella, worked her console with trembling hands. Sir, preliminary scans show minimal military presence remaining. The Vryn fleet departed 30 minutes before we arrived. They took the orbital manufacturing platforms with them. Drixon slammed his fist against the command chair. How? How are they moving so fast? Our intelligence said they were 3 sectors away yesterday. Unknown, sir. Sella pulled up a tactical display. Their jump signatures don't match any known drive system. They're moving between systems in a fraction of the normal time. This had been the pattern for all 3 attacks. The Vryn appeared suddenly, overwhelmed planetary defenses before help could arrive, and vanished before Council reinforcements showed up. Their technology was beyond anything the Council had encountered. Send rescue teams to the surface, Drixon ordered, and get me a secure channel to Council military command. They need to see this. While his crew worked, Drixon reviewed the battle recordings recovered from the automated defense platforms. He watched as Vryn warships dropped out of quantum space. Their shields shimmered with a strange purple energy. When Council ships fired on them, the weapons simply disappeared into the shields, absorbed without impact. Then the Vryn returned fire. Their missiles phased through Council ship armor as if it didn't exist. Explosions erupted from inside the targeted vessels. No shields could stop them. No armor provided protection. The Council ships died one by one, helpless against weapons that ignored conventional defenses. Drixon had watched these recordings before from the previous attacks. He still couldn't understand the technology involved. Neither could anyone else in the Council military. A message alert blinked on his console. Drixon opened it and found a priority communication from Admiral Thornak at Military Command. Commander Drixon, the Admiral's image appeared, his usually composed features showing strain. Return to Council Station 7 immediately. All senior officers are being recalled for an emergency briefing. We've found something. The Admiral's tone made Drixon's skin prickle. Sir, what have you found? Not over this channel. Just get here as fast as possible. The connection ended. Drixon turned to his helm officer. Set course for Station 7, maximum speed. Emergency priority. The 3-day journey felt like an eternity. When the Determination finally docked at the massive military station, Drixon headed straight for the briefing center. He found the large auditorium filled with officers from across the Council fleet. The mood was tense. Admiral Thornak stood at the podium waiting for everyone to arrive. Behind him, a young Mindari scientist sat at a console, her fingers moving nervously. When the doors sealed, Thornak spoke. Thank you all for coming. I know you've left your posts during a critical time, but this information is too important to delay. He gestured to the scientist. This is Dr. Reshala from the Council Science Directorate. 2 days ago, she made a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about the Vryn attack. Doctor? Dr. Reshala stood, her small frame looking fragile at the large podium. She activated a holographic display showing complex scientific equations. 3 weeks ago, I was assigned to analyze Vryn weapons technology, she began, her voice soft but clear. The energy signatures didn't match anything in our databases, but something about the quantum resonance pattern seemed familiar. She changed the display to show a scientific paper. I started searching through archived research from various Council species. I found this paper published 43 years ago in the Journal of Applied Quantum Mechanics. It was written by Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, a human scientist. Murmurs spread through the auditorium. Someone said loudly, "The humans? But they left 30 years ago." Exactly, Dr. Reshala said. This paper was published before the human exodus. Dr. Okonkwo proposed a theoretical framework for using quantum entanglement to create phased matter. She suggested it might be possible to make objects exist in a superposition state, allowing them to pass through normal matter. She pulled up another document. The Council Science Directorate reviewed this paper when it was published. The Senior Review Board concluded, and I quote, "While theoretically interesting, the proposed applications are impractical with current technology and unlikely to yield useful results. Research funding is not recommended." Drixon felt his stomach tighten. He knew where this was going. "The Vrin," Dr. Rishala continued, "have weaponized this exact theory. Their missiles use quantum phase shifting to pass through ship armor. I've confirmed it by analyzing the residual quantum signatures from the destroyed vessels." She changed the display again, showing another paper. That's not all. This paper, published 41 years ago by human physicist Dr. James Chen, proposed using exotic matter to create energy absorption fields. The Council Review Board called it speculative and unsupported by empirical evidence. "The Vrin shields," someone whispered. "Yes," Dr. Rishala confirmed. "Their shield technology matches Dr. Chen's theoretical framework almost exactly." She pulled up a third document. "And this paper, published 39 years ago by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, proposed modifications to standard quantum drives that could theoretically reduce travel time by 70%. The Council called it mathematically sound but engineering impossible with current manufacturing capabilities." Admiral Thornack stepped forward. "The Vrin are using weapons based on human theoretical research. Research that our own scientists dismissed as impractical." The auditorium erupted in shocked conversation. Drixon sat frozen, processing the implications. The humans had published these ideas openly. They had shared their research with the Council. And the Council had ignored it. "How did the Vrin get access to this research?" an officer called out. "All Council scientific publications are technically public record," Dr. Rishala explained. "Anyone with access to Council databases could find these papers. The Vrin apparently read them and understood their potential." Admiral Thornack raised his hand for silence. "There's more. Dr. Rishala's team has found 17 additional papers published by human scientists during their time in Council space. All of them propose revolutionary technologies. All of them were dismissed or ignored by Council review boards." He activated a new display showing a list of papers: artificial gravity manipulation, quantum communication arrays, advanced power generation, matter replication. The humans were publishing breakthrough after breakthrough, and we treated it as academic curiosities. Drixon finally found his voice. "Sir, if the humans publish this research, does that mean they developed these technologies themselves?" The Admiral's expression grew dark. "That's the question, isn't it? These papers were published before humanity left Council space. If these theories were practical enough for the Vrin to weaponize, then why didn't the humans build these weapons themselves?" Silence fell across the auditorium as everyone considered that question. The answer was obvious and terrifying. "They did build them," Drixon said quietly. "They just never told us," Dr. Rishala nodded. "That's my conclusion as well. I believe these published papers represent simplified versions of research the humans had already completed. They were sharing the basic concepts while keeping the practical applications secret." Another officer stood. "But why? If they had such advanced technology, why didn't they use it? Why did they seem so ordinary? Why did they leave?" Someone else added. Admiral Thornack looked tired suddenly. "I've been asking myself those questions for 2 days. The only answer I can come up with is that they chose to appear ordinary. They chose to hide their capabilities. And when they decided to leave, we were so convinced of their mediocrity that we let them go without question." He changed the display to show a star map. The humans didn't just leave. They disappeared beyond the galactic rim into a region of space we've never explored. They took all their people, all their technology, and all their knowledge, and they did it right under our noses while we congratulated ourselves on losing an average species. Drixon stood. "Sir, we need to find them. If the humans developed these technologies 30 years ago, what have they built since then? We need their help against the Vrin." "I agree," Thornack said, "which is why the Council has authorized a deep space expedition. We're going to find humanity and ask for their assistance." He looked around the room at the assembled officers. "But I want you all to understand something. We dismissed their research. We ignored their potential. We let them leave without a second thought. When we find them, we won't be approaching as equals. We'll be approaching as supplicants begging for help from a species we once considered unremarkable. The weight of those words settled over the room. Drixon thought about all the times he'd worked with human officers during joint operations. They had been competent and professional, but never exceptional. Or so he had thought. Texari sat alone in the dim archive room, watching the holographic recording for the 100th time. The image flickered to life, showing the Great Council chamber as it had looked 50 years ago. The room had been packed that day. Representatives from 200 species filled the curved seating rows, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes under the soft lighting. On the central platform stood Ambassador Chen, the human representative. She wore a simple gray suit, her dark hair pulled back neatly. Her face showed no emotion as she addressed the council. The United Humanity Collective formally requests permission to withdraw from council space, Chen said. Her voice was calm and professional. We wish to relocate all human colonies, stations, and vessels beyond the galactic rim. We ask for a period of 20 standard years to complete this migration. Thexari remembered the confused murmurs that had spread through the chamber. He had been young then, a junior analyst sitting in the back rows. Even from that distance, he had seen how the senior representatives exchanged glances. Some looked amused. Others seemed puzzled. A few appeared relieved. Council Speaker Vornal, a massive Krellian with 4 arms and silver skin, had leaned forward. Ambassador Chen, this is unexpected. May we know the reason for this decision? Chen had paused for just a moment. Humanity believes it would be best for all parties if we pursue our development independently. We have no complaints. We simply feel our path lies elsewhere. The recording showed Vornal's confusion clearly. His head tilted in that particular way Krellians did when something didn't make sense to them. You have no grievances? No disputes that require resolution? None, Speaker, Chen replied. We are grateful for the opportunities the Council has provided. We have learned much during our 2 centuries of membership. Now we feel it is time to move on. Texari watched as his younger self leaned over to whisper to a colleague. He couldn't hear what he'd said in the recording, but he remembered the words clearly. They're giving up. They finally realized they can't compete. That had been the common opinion. Humanity had always been seen as mediocre members of the Council. They were decent engineers, adequate diplomats, and competent soldiers. But they weren't exceptional at anything. The Vrixian built better ships. The Talon were superior warriors. The Mindari had far more advanced computers. Humans were just average. The recording continued. Various council members had asked questions. Why the galactic rim? Why complete isolation? Why take everything, including the asteroid mining stations and orbital farms? Chen had answered each question politely, but revealed almost nothing. We prefer a fresh start, she said repeatedly. We want to build something of our own. The vote had been quick. Only 3 representatives voted against the human departure, and that was merely out of procedure. Everyone else approved it immediately. Some species even seemed eager to see humanity go. The humans had occupied valuable trade routes and habitable worlds that other species wanted. Texari fast-forwarded through the procedural discussions. He stopped at the final moment, when Chen prepared to leave the chamber for the last time. Ambassador Chen, Speaker Vornal had called out, do you have any final words for the council? Chen had turned back. For the first time that day, she had smiled. It was a small smile, but it had seemed genuine. Thank you for the opportunity, she said. We'll remember everything we learned here. Then she had walked out, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Texari stopped the recording and sat in silence. Those words haunted him now. We'll remember everything we learned here. At the time, he had thought it was a simple courtesy. Now he understood it differently. Now he knew it had been a warning that no one had recognized. He opened another file on his datapad. This one contained the Exodus records. The data still amazed him even after reviewing it countless times. Humanity had kept its word perfectly. Over the next 20 years, they had systematically packed up every single human presence in council space. Every colony world was evacuated. Every space station was dismantled or abandoned. Every ship in their fleet gathered and departed. Even the small human populations living on alien worlds packed their belongings and left. The efficiency had been remarkable. Humans moved billions of people and centuries of accumulated equipment without a single major incident. They established temporary way station networks, coordinated massive cargo convoys, and managed the logistics of the greatest migration in galactic history. And they did it quietly. No protests, no dramatic speeches, no tearful goodbyes. They simply left. Texari remembered visiting one of the abandoned human colonies 5 years after the Exodus. New Harmony had been a mid-sized settlement on a pleasant world near the Council's core systems. When humans had controlled it, the colony had housed 3 million people. He had walked through empty streets lined with intact buildings. The humans had taken their personal belongings but left the infrastructure behind. Parks with alien trees transplanted from Earth stood silent. Schools sat empty, their classrooms still equipped with desks and teaching equipment. Even the power grid still functioned, maintained by automated systems. It had felt like walking through a ghost town. But more than that, it had felt deliberate. The humans hadn't destroyed anything. They hadn't left messages or warnings. They had simply erased themselves from council space as if they had never existed. Other species had quickly claimed the abandoned worlds. The empty stations were refurbished and reused. The council had gained valuable resources from humanity's departure. Everyone agreed it had worked out well for all parties. That had been the consensus for 30 years. Texari opened a third file and his eyes grew dark. This file was much newer. It contained military reports, economic analyses, and emergency session transcripts. This file told the story of what happened after humanity left. For the first decade, everything seemed fine. The council continued as it always had. Trade flourished. New members joined. Political alliances shifted as they always did. Then small problems started appearing. A trade route that humans had managed became unstable, leading to pirates and increased costs. A diplomatic dispute that would normally be resolved quickly escalated into armed conflict. Technical standards that humans had maintained began fragmenting, making cross-species cooperation more difficult. These were minor issues. The Council addressed them one by one, though with more effort than expected. No one connected these problems to humanity's absence. Why would they? Humans had been average members. Surely the Council could handle simple problems without them. But the problems grew. Jump gate maintenance schedules that humans had optimized started failing. Shipping costs increased as the efficient routes humans had calculated were forgotten. Conflicts that humans had mediated early now exploded into violence. And then the Vryn attacked. Texari closed his eyes, not wanting to look at those reports again. The Vryn Concordat had always been aggressive neighbors, but they had never dared attack Council worlds directly. 30 years after humanity left, they changed their strategy. The weapons they used were devastating: energy shields that absorbed any attack, missiles that phased through armor, ships that moved faster than anything in the Council fleet. 3 worlds fell in 6 months. Millions died. The Council military, once considered invincible, retreated in confusion and fear. It was a young Mindari scientist who made the connection. She found old human research papers published in obscure scientific journals. The papers described theoretical applications of quantum mechanics and exotic matter. The Council's top scientists had reviewed these papers years ago and dismissed them as interesting but impractical. The Vryn had built weapons based on those theories. And those weapons were very practical indeed. Texari opened his eyes and looked at the frozen image of Ambassador Chen on the display. Her small smile seemed different now. It didn't look like courtesy anymore. It looked like someone who knew a secret, someone who was being polite while walking away from people who had never appreciated her. The archive room felt very cold suddenly. Texari reached out and closed the file, but he couldn't stop thinking about those final words. "We'll remember everything we learned here." Yes, he thought bitterly. They had remembered. They had remembered every dismissal, every ignored proposal, every time the Council had treated human innovation as mediocre. And they had used those memories to build something the Council was only now beginning to understand, something far beyond anything the Council had ever imagined. Texari stood and walked slowly toward the exit. Tomorrow he would present his report to the current Council. He would tell them what his 50 years of research had uncovered. He would explain how badly they had miscalculated, but tonight he needed to sit with the weight of that knowledge alone. The knowledge that the Council had allowed something precious to slip away, because they had been too proud to see its value. They had allowed humanity to leave in silence, and now they would live forever with that regret.